this is the day for people to share things. Greg, do you want to come in and just share about aspiring leaders?
Kia ora te whānau. Thank you guys for sharing this morning. A part of what I'm going to talk about is what you were doing is telling a story. And it just made me think that wouldn't it be amazing if we could hear the stories that are in this room. And the brilliant thing that I've discovered about story is that it brings down walls, and it makes us realise that regardless of, we see each other as being different, but actually when we tell story we discover that actually we're very similar, and there are common threads that we can identify with. So I'm talking about Aspiring Leaders Forum. It's an event that's held every year. 110 people are nominated, young people from 18 to 27. They're nominated to go down to Wellington. In Wellington, they spend a day in Parliament. The next day they spend at a sports event. They do a community service. And the key part of the event is basically you form into a small group and you do a journey together. And in that journey you're encouraged to tell a story. So I'm just going to share some of the highlights that I had from this year. There were many. So the first day in Parliament, we go to question time. We are welcomed by a Labour MP and a National MP. We had a panel where people from the floor asked questions. That was very engaging. And then the bit that I really enjoyed was our group then, so there's 7 in our group, 2 facilitators and 1 assistant facilitator, so there's 10 altogether. And we got collected by an MP, and he showed us around Parliament and took us back to his office. And his name's Glenn Bennett. He was, he's a new Labour MP for Taranaki. My group really enjoyed him. He shared that he is there because he's a community man, and he has raised 5 young foster sons. And he has 2 what you would call foster children now. Anyway, he shared this with our group, and so one of the members in our group said, what is your greatest moment of pride? And he said when he did so in Parliament you have to give an inaugural speech, and he said when he was giving his speech, he looked up in the gallery and one of those foster children was sitting up there, and he was one of the hard nuts, and had to go to a lot of trouble to get to that event, and he was really touched. And when he was sharing that story with us, he was emotional, and young people can see they enjoy seeing the truth and not having things masked. Right, so Jim Bolger was the next highlight for me. He said, somebody asked from the audience, what was your greatest failure? And he said, I tried to encourage te reo in primary school in the 90s, but I failed to push hard enough. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. He's an 86-year-old articulate man. He's like a statesman. I asked the people in my group, do you remember him? No. Nobody remembered Jim Bolger, but everybody was engaged in the question time because he was really, really clever with his answers. And but that was a snippet that I thought was pretty amazing for me. And then we had another speaker later on in the forum. His name's Pio, I can't say his last anyway, he's a television personality, he's a comedian. So he shared with us about the loss of his son to leukemia at the age of 17. And he's, He said that his brain went red, his grief caused reckless behaviour, and then he went to see a guy called Sam Chapman who lives in Taranaki, and Sam said to him, "Bro, you need to reposition yourself under a free-flowing tap of aroha." And I just thought that was just really insightful. And so Poi went back to the parenting place where he felt love, and he's continued to work through that organisation. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool story. Oh, and also the meaning of aroha. So I always took that as just meaning love, but it's actually a little bit more in depth than that. It's in pursuit of the breath of life. I thought that was pretty wow. So the highlight for me, sorry Ross, a bit more than 2 minutes. Highlight for me was my group. I had 4 from Christchurch, 3 from Auckland. We spent 4 days with these amazing young people. It was very powerful, and we shared story. One was, there was a story from a split family and how that impacted them. There was a student from the Volunteer Army in Christchurch, amazing. There was a young man who met God while searching for a solution to his porn addiction. There was an orphan baby adopted by a Kiwi family from China. There was a 17-year-old young man who led a vigil that ended up being like 1,000 people after the mosque shootings. Yeah, it was an amazing, great 4 days.
Thank you, Greg. We have a lot of people doing a lot of things in our fellowship, don't we? Hannah, do you want to just briefly share about last weekend, wasn't it?
I will keep it quick. So some of you will have noticed we had some extra youth members at church last week. That was because we slept over the whole weekend. So people came on Friday for normal youth group, and they could choose to just come for normal youth group, or they could stick around for just the Friday or the Saturday night as well. And we did 40-hour famine, so everyone had individual challenges as well as 2 team challenges. So one of them was 800 kilometres in 40 hours on the exercycle, which we achieved. It was a little bit challenging to get the half-hour shifts done in like early hours, but I found breakfast time was actually harder because everyone stayed up late and then slept. And then our other challenge was 40 things to pray for in 40 hours, and those are still up in the creche if anyone wants to have a look. But it was an awesome time of hanging out with no particular agenda, building community, building relationships, and just really getting to know each other that little bit better, and not having nearly enough sleep or food. So it's a really cool time. It's one of the highlights of my year for youth group, so really glad that we got to do it this year.
And if you want to support the young people in their 40-hour famine, you go to the World Vision website. Those of you who get my email, I've sent you the link.
You can search Reach Youth Group. We've got a team goal of $1,500. The little goal thing on that poster there is saying we're at 76%, and that's about what our goal is, but it's a little bit deceptive because it doesn't count our cash donations. So we've got another $400, I think, on top of that. So we're almost at our goal, which is fantastic.